She is going to share with us a relevant talk, considering most of you are in the violence, dignity, and social justice subject. I think this particular lecture is going to be very, very, very interesting for you. So I want you to share this experience with. I invite you to share this experience with respect, and I'm so Nilima, for staying today with us and sharing with the students and professors this relevant lecture about Shakti leadership. Thank you very much and welcome. Please.
Check. And why don't you ladies move this side, because I'm going to have to move my mouse from here, to be able to see it well. So can you move that side? Easier. It's okay. So quick check. I like this. We don't have a mentee meter where we can check in the room. How are you doing? One word. In the next 1 hour, what is it that you are looking forward to? One word. To learn, yes. Answers. Thank you. What else? What would you like to take away from this 1 hour? To understand. Thank you. What else? Anyone? Okay, another question. Have you had lunch? Yes? Okay, good. So, are you feeling sleepy or are you feeling awake? Awake? Great, great. I hope not sleepy, because while this is a very interesting session, it's also a very deep session. And it requires your full concentration, because in a way, what you're going to receive is ancient wisdom, but it's also about 20 years of distilled work in this next 1 hour. So it's a lot. I'm going to throw a lot at you. You need to be fully awake. So please gather your presence, and we'll dive right in. I like to begin by calling this 1 hour session keynote. I either call it "The Only Win is a Win-Win," or the other title I really like is "Why Lead with Half Your Power?" Okay, so essentially this session is about understanding power, because from the time I was young, I was growing up in India, and at the breakfast table in the morning, the newspaper would be read, and the conversation would be who came into power and who lost power, right? And as a little child, I realized, oh my God, grown-ups are all about dealing in power. Everyone's interested in power. Like, where is power? Who has power? And it suddenly occurred to me, this seems like something very important when you grow up in the adult world. And as I grew up and I came into leadership, and I realized everyone's busy jockeying for power. And then I came to yoga and spirituality and the understanding of this concept called Shakti. And I said, my God, there is enough power for all. We are like fish dying of thirst when we are swimming in an ocean of power, right? The problem is we don't know that there is some real power available to us. And because of that, we are busy fighting over each other's little batteries, right? There is enough power for. So why lead with your power when there is another half somewhere, maybe even more than you can imagine? So we have a world in a crisis. I'm sure you're getting the slide from every single professor who comes. It's called the Third World War between humanity and the planet. We are in the Anthropocene age, which means for the first time there is a species on this planet that is capable of destroying it, unlike the past where all the other species were, at the end of the day, at the mercy of nature. We're in the middle of the sixth mass extinction of species. And here's the scary thing that 4 more Earths will be needed if the developing world has to catch up with the developed world. So the global south is hungry to be economically empowered, wants to have what the global north has, but the global north, especially America, has overconsumed the planet 4 times already. So we cannot follow their development model. There simply isn't enough earth and resources to go around. And 2030 is a time horizon. The 17 sustainable development goals have to be met. And if some of them are not met by 2030, we actually stand the risk of crossing some planetary boundaries to a point of no return. So I feel very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? There's this with a deep sense of guilt when I come and I speak to young people. My daughter is 30 years old and my son is 33. And, they look at me with a lot that the planet got tanked on my beat, my generation's beat. You know, we were the ones in charge. It was in the 60s and 70s that industrial farming and, you know, all these horrible horror things of water bottles made of plastic, all this happened literally in my lifetime. I watched it happen. And it is people from my time, leaders from my time, my generation, that made some very poor choices, some very poor decisions. So here we are trying to stop that is heading towards a precipice, and can we put the brakes on in time? So there's a fierce urgency of now. What is that? We have a world in crisis, and if you literally have to diagnose what is the crisis, there are only 2 crises. One is it's a crisis of consciousness because it's a certain level of consciousness that created the problem. The famous Einstein quote that the problem cannot be solved at the level at which it is created. We have to rise to the next higher level of consciousness to fix the problem we created at this lower level. So it's a crisis of consciousness. But equally, it's a crisis of leadership because some leader somewhere made all these decisions that have led to our crisis today, right? These are very man made problems we are facing. And it's because leadership let us down. Some leader somewhere took some very unconscious decisions. So the problem is the model of leadership out there isn't working. We have a crisis of leadership. The current hyper-masculine business, governance, and leadership model is inadequate, and feminization is needed to restore balance. We're not saying the feminine is better. We're simply saying there needs to be a balance. And this is what the research is showing, that we simply need more women and girls in having their voice heard and having agency in the workplace and in our communities. So women are critical to the economy, ecology, technology, and peace process. If you see what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, if you see what's going on in Gaza, where are the women, right? We simply do not have enough women voices in leadership who simply saying stop, enough, no more, right? And I hope these crises we are facing will serve to wake up the kind of women we need in leadership today. It is time to end the battle of the sexes and become fully human. We urgently need leaders who are 2 things. They are conscious, meaning they show self mastery and selfless service of a higher purpose. And 2, they are integrated, meaning they express both healthy, competitive, masculine and collaborative feminine values and behaviors. So it's not about making men wrong or subjugating women or subjugating men and giving women power over them. It's neither. It's really about ending the battle of the sexes and regardless of gender, all of us becoming fully human. So, the roots of modern leadership lie in conflict, territorialism, and the exercise of power. This is what I was discovering as I was growing up, right? That how come it's all about a power game? And who do you look at as a model for leaders? It began with looking at the animal kingdom, and the king of the hill is the lion, right? And so the tribal chieftain would take the model from there, and even the way they would dress up. Then you have the ancient text from India, the Mahabharata, has a story where the great patriarch lies dying on a bed of arrows, and the winners, the Pandavas, are sitting around him as he dies, and he is giving them a great discourse on how to lead your people, how to govern your country. There's another great book. It's gone out of format here. It's called The Art of War. So back in the 80s, this was a text all business schools were learning. The Art of War from Sun Tzu, right? Which is basically business is war. You've got to kill the competition. And then, of course, our other models, when we think of who were the great leaders across history, you have Alexander the Great, you have Julius Caesar, you have Henry VIII, you have Winston Churchill. So this is kind of a very rather outdated model of the world. And another thing that what do you see here right now? What surprises you as you look at this? All men, right? All men. It's time to do something about that. Meanwhile, there is this concept called Shakti, and this comes from India. And essentially, right now, it's very invisible. The feminine principle is so invisible, it's almost not seen and acknowledged anymore. So, I saw this cartoon in the New Yorker. I was telling Raj Sisodia, my co author, I said, this represents Shakti. There's a big elephant in the room, it's depressed, it's lying on a couch, and it's telling the psychiatrist, I'm right there in the room and no one even acknowledges me, right? So it's of course a cute little joke, but when you think about the feminine and the power that women have, it's like that elephant in the room. So women today are far more educated than they were in the past. There are more graduates than there are male graduates in many universities in the Western world. Women have more purchasing power. All the brands, who goes into the supermarket and buys all those things is basically women making those decisions. So women are like elephants. They do not realize their own power. There's a story of how elephants are trained in India. Yeah, when they're baby elephants, there is a thick chain tied around the foot of the elephant to a tree. And so the little baby is not strong enough to move away, can't break the chain, right? And it gets socialized in its head inside that I am weak, I am weak, I am weak. And then one day it's grown up, it's so strong, but the mahout, the trainer, just removes the chain from the tree but keeps it around the leg. So this big elephant is walking around with that chain on its leg. The truth is, it's now strong enough and it is free to wander anywhere and leave. Okay. But on the inside, it is socialized to be domesticated and to be disempowered. Right? This is what's happening with the women of the world today who have been socialized in the patriarchy. There's a wonderful book by Maureen Murdoch on the heroine's journey, which we will not go into today, but she talks about the three limiting beliefs that women have bought in about themselves across cultures, because the patriarchy has existed across cultures, at least for thousands of years. So, what is the first limiting belief? It's that women are inferior to men, they're simply weaker physically. The second is that women are dependent on men. Even today, you can't go into many government offices around the world and fill a form as your own person if you're a woman. Your identity is linked to father's name or husband's name. If you cannot provide that, you probably can't get your work done, right? Which means that as a woman, you do not have independence. You are a dependent on some male figure. The third limiting belief is that women are incomplete without men. And this is the whole fairy tale, the Sleeping Beauty story and all the Bollywood romances. It's such a, on one hand, it sounds so seductive and so amazing and so attractive that all we want is love. So a woman is made to feel as she's growing up on these fairy tales that you are Sleeping Beauty and you're going to be waiting until your Prince Charming comes and kisses you awake. And then you will be complete, right? Which is such a disempowering myth, right? So she goes through her life thinking she doesn't have agency and she can't get things done because some man has to come and complete her. So Women are inferior to men, women are dependent on men, women are incomplete without men. Three limiting beliefs that have kept women down inside their own heads. And this belief system is called the inner patriarch. It's like there's a voice in a woman's head that keeps going that says, do not exceed your husband, your man, do not shine too bright, play small, be the good girl, right? So there's a lot behind this one slide, that women do not know their own power. They're like those elephants who have been socialized to think they don't have the energy to really be free. So it's time for a new leadership model on a new power base that creates a world that works for all. It's time. We need to know and grow our Shakti. And what is Shakti? Shakti is a civilizational elixir from India to the world. And this is one of my passion projects, which is scan all the world's civilizations and mine them for the great ideas that they have distilled from their journeys and their civilizational journeys and the elixirs that they have brought back. So if you think about, have you heard of Ubuntu from Africa? It's this idea that I am because we are, okay? Have you heard of Ikigai? It comes from Japan. The idea that each one of us has a unique purpose to bring to the world. Have you all heard of yoga? Yes. See, the great idea from India that many of us around the world are really benefiting from. There's the idea of tikkun olam, which is like the order of things, which comes from Judaism. You have the Tao, yin and yang, the idea from China, right? So, in the same way, I said to myself, I said to Raj, it's time for the world to know Shakti. Because Shakti is about power and this great power that is available to everybody. And we need it in leadership because everyone's fighting stupid, limited power games when there's enough for all. So, what is Shakti? Shakti is the innate, infinite, intelligent power of existence. So, apparently, have you heard the word Ananda? Ananda. No? Another Sanskrit word which means delight. Okay, delight, bliss. So, one of the other big ideas from the Indic civilization is that this whole universe is not only intelligent, it's innately delightful. That just to be alive is an act of bliss and delight. That we are made of delight, we are made of ananda, we are made of joy, we are created for the purpose of delight, and we subsist in delight and we return to delight, okay? If we only know how to get there to the root of that existence and state of being. So if ananda is the innate delight of existence, Shakti is the innate power of existence. So there's understanding that this whole universe, this whole creation is full of power. Think about it. It's obvious, isn't it? Right now, your electrons are spinning around your nucleus in your atoms. There is planets spinning around various suns around the world. There are entire galaxies spinning around. I mean, it all takes energy. It all takes power. Not just power, not just inanimate power. It's a profoundly intelligent power. Your body is digesting the lunch you just had without you having to think about it. The intelligence of your body, the Shakti of your body, knows what to do with the food you ate. And it's going about digesting it and giving you the power to have thoughts right now and pay attention to this class, right? So there is power that is innate in the system. We don't have to go fight for it from elsewhere. It is intelligent and it is infinite. There is enough for all. It is regenerative and creative, and it's called the mother or the source force. Why is it called the mother, or why is it called the divine feminine principle? It's because from this energy, from this power, we have all come to pass, right? There is a creative force of evolution that has created everything. So it's a source from which everything comes, and therefore we relate to it as the mother. It animates consciousness, it fuels evolution, and it drives all change. So think about it, when this planet was first created, it was just molten lava, right? And then finally minerals crystallized out of it. Did it stop there? No, there was some intelligence, some energy, some power that evolved the plant kingdom out of it. Did it stop there? No. There is a creative energy that evolved animals out of it. Did it stop there? No. There's another creative energy that has further evolved humans out of it. It's not going to stop here. We humans are certainly not the last rung of evolution. We're such unfortunately sorry specimens, right? That there must be a better species that needs to show up on this planet. So clearly, this is an evolution of consciousness that is happening here on this planet, from mineral to plant to animal to human. And what if there is an intelligent force behind this that is still intentional about getting to something that it wants to create, right? So that is our hope when we do spiritual work and practice such as yoga, saying, how can I evolve myself? How can I become a bigger, better version of myself, right? So all this takes energy, it takes intelligence, it takes capacity, it takes Shakti. And if you think of Shakti as an intelligent force that's already moving through you, all you have to do is learn to align with it and let it move you, right? Tune into it, listen to it, whether it's your intuition, whether it's a sense of higher guidance, whether it's a sense of your heart opening and a sense of love towards all that is. All these are ways in which you can tap into and become part of the greater evolutionary drama that you are. So, Shakti in leadership is the power of presence. Shakti is doing lots of everything. Shakti is everything, technically, according to the yogic tradition. But why do we put it in leadership? Because leadership requires power to get outcomes. And in our conscious leadership practice, we want to apply true power, conscious power, not ego based power. So, Shakti in leadership is the power of presence. When you're not in your ego, but you are in your presence, which is the class we did earlier on the grass. When you're not in your ego, in your limited self, but you have stepped into your powerful, unlimited presence, then it's not a dull, dead state. It is a profoundly alive state, and you're able to channel a force of, it's like a river of energy that starts moving you and flowing through you, which is your inner Shakti. It's a power to drive outcomes you need as a leader. So presence brings equanimity, but its accompanying power provides the creative energy to innovate conscious outcomes. Because as a leader, you're constantly being asked to create some outcome. And it better be good, it better be conscious. And to create any conscious outcome, you need to be creative, you need to think, you need to have energy, you need to have ideas. And that will come from this transpersonal source. So, how do we make it very practical? Let's ask us some questions, As a person, how do you exercise power? Because at the end of the day, even if you're not in an active leadership position, you still need to exercise some power, some agency to get anything you want, right? You need to have some power to get things done. So, what is your power game? What is your power base? Are you doing true power or are you doing false power? Let me talk false power first. So, false power is unfortunately the way we typically do things. It's a win lose kind of game. It's about negotiating in a relationship in such a way that you take more from the table and leave less for the other. Okay? So it's called win lose, power over. Yeah? And it's the force of narrow self interest. So, what's in it for me? What's good for me? How can I manipulate it so that I get more for me? Right? And essentially, this power comes to us from our privilege. So that's why we're all wanting to become CEOs or becoming more famous or becoming more wealthy, or because somehow with these external labels and external sources, we will feel and become more powerful. Problem with privilege is that it's an external source. It is finite. It can be taken away from you, and ultimately, whatever you create from your false ego power will fail. Think about it. I have uncles who used to be very senior bureaucrats. They were cops. They were like, assistant commissioner of police and so on. So I would look at them in their big uniforms, and people would run to open the car door for them. And it was this, they were in power, okay? And then they would retire. And the day they retired, and I would visit them in their home, I would not recognize them because That whole aura of external power had been taken away from them. So now they were like little ghosts wandering around the corridors of their home with no identity, because that identity had been completely built on an external privilege, right? It's such a sad waste of a life that you do not go through your years building your own innate sense of self and your self worth that is dependent on some label that has been given to you from the outside. And whatever you create with all that ego based energy, you put in so much hard work to rise in power and come into power. My mentor, she says it's like beating water in a cup. You're getting very busy, you're putting a lot of energy, and you think you're going to get something done. But when you stop beating water in a cup and you pull your hand out, what happens? That water in the cup goes right back to being water still in a cup, right? And all that effort you had put in has not created anything of value, right? So when you create with privilege based power, whatever you create fails. There's no legacy you leave behind that is worthy, right? Which is so sad. If you think about all our political power games and all our corporate power games, it's just so sad. It's all right there. What if there's another power game, right? Which is this true power. Can we do win win? Which is every time you have a conversation with somebody, try and do a power with. So I like how Alanis Morissette says, she says, yes, I'm a superstar, singer, etc. But whenever I'm working with my team, my crew, whatever conversation I have with them, I'm very clear it's got to be win win or no deal. Win win or no deal, right? Because if they do not win when I win, eventually someone's going to get resentful and it will come back to me in negative ways, right? So the truth is, there is no win lose. Win lose eventually becomes lose lose. So, really, the smart way to do it is to always figure out a win for all, not just good for you, good for me, but good for all. Okay. So it's a win-win. It's about power with, in power to create impact and change. It's the force for greater good. And this power is Shakti. It's an internal source. It's unlimited. Best of all, it cannot be taken away from you. And what you create from your own innate creative intelligence will last, because that is what evolution wishes to create using you as an instrument. It's life wanting to create through you. Okay, it's a far better game to play. And this thing about cannot be taken away from you, have you read Viktor Frankl's book Man's Search for Meaning? Right, that's exactly it. That even in the worst of circumstances, where you are brought down to the most depraved human conditions, if what that can't take away from you is your inner self and the power that is inside you. And then, if you know how to tap into that, it gives you the resilience to survive anything, including the Holocaust. Okay? So, that is when you have tapped into your own innate Shakti. So, I want us to have some reflections. These are some coaching questions, okay? Just for you to start really reflecting on and processing your power game, understanding how do you do power. Because the truth is, each one of us is dealing in power. Just like each one of us buys and sells things, has currency, has money. You even want a bottle of water, you have to put some money on the counter, correct? So each one of us is dealing in power on a daily basis, whether you know it or not. And using these questions, I want you to now raise your power game and make it more conscious. So think of a key relationship in your life. How do you exercise power in this relationship? Is it mostly power over or power with? For those of you who are in romantic partnerships, think about this. Okay, you'd be surprised how often we give our power away and we don't even know we've done that. Think of a person who models power over leadership and someone who models power with leadership. And what can you learn about your own relationship with power? So, if you look at all the world leaders, you can very quickly sort them into these two buckets, right? Where would you put Donald Trump? Where would you put Putin? Where would you put Hitler? Where would you put Mussolini? Right? Where would you put the Dalai Lama? Where would you put Jacinda Ardern? Right? I would put Michelle Obama here. Right? So start thinking about who are leaders who do power over and who are leaders who are doing power with. And how can you change your own power game? Because all of us are going to do power in some form or shape. We can only make it conscious. How can you watch for power over dynamics and shift to power with dynamics from now on? This is a responsibility each one of us has to step into. You can't just say, oh, that person is bullying me. No, what can you do about it? Notice how and when you may be giving away your power or unconsciously tend to lose it. Why do you think this happens and how can you prevent it? This happens with so many women, especially, who are so used to saying yes. They're used to being the caregivers. They're expected to be the nurturers. They're expected to sacrifice themselves for their loved ones, right? And right there, you can see how women give their power away and lose it. And that's because they would rather be loved than have the power to be independent, right? But it doesn't work that way after a while. There is a big price to pay. So to come into your full power, you need to become a whole person. And right there, you can see one icon, and I'm going to show you another version of it. So this comes from the mythic language of India, and it's called the Ardha Narishwar, the androgyne. We say a conscious leader is whole, meaning in the Indian mythology, and mythology is psychology, okay? In the Indian mythic wisdom, there's the understanding that when we are in our full potency, when we are in our full divinity, we are equal parts masculine and feminine wedded into each other inside us. Okay? We are half Shiva, half Shakti, half masculine, half feminine. It's like an inhale and an exhale. You can't say, I want to inhale more and exhale less. The masculine and feminine in us, the yin and the yang in us, is one and the same thing. It's just a spectrum. It's just a Mobius strip that moves from one pole to the other so that it keeps the dynamic life going. So a conscious leader is whole. So to come into our whole power, you need to be a whole person. So what is the purpose of polarity? Why do things come in pairs? Why does masculine, feminine, yin, yang exist? Why does active principle, receptive principle exist? It's not a bug of the system, it's a feature of the design, because think about a horseshoe magnet. There is a North Pole and there is a South Pole. Because there is a North Pole and a South Pole, guess what happens? This space in between has now got magnetized. If you did not have the horseshoe, you took away the North Pole, you took away the South Pole, this space is just empty, potential, neutral space. Because you've created polarity, guess what? Now, when I put a wire through it, I generate current. So, which means polarity is part of the system design. Things come in pairs so that leveraging the energy of both, you get the fuel needed to run the system. Okay? So, masculine and feminine are inside each of us, regardless of our gender, regardless of our sexual orientation. These are orientations inside all of us, and we need to work with both, like inhale and exhale. You can't say, I like to inhale and I don't want to exhale. You'll die. Right? So, why do we think that we can choose to be only one way and deny the other? This is the problem the patriarchy created. It valued all things male, all things masculine. It devalued all things female, all things feminine. And now we have a broken system running on empty. Why? Because we are only inhaling and we are not exhaling. Right? It's as fundamental as that. So, how do you work with this concept in leadership? How do you get the best of your masculine energy and the best of your feminine energy in leadership? This ability to work with polarities is the work of Dr. Barry Johnson, and you can look up more at polarity partnerships. But I think it's utterly, he needs a Nobel Prize for having figured out leveraging polarities. But we are going to look at leveraging feminine and masculine. So you create these four quadrants, the famous four quadrants. Now you say, what is it you don't want? What you don't want is to block your Shakti. What is it that you do want? You want to release your whole power. For that, you need to leverage the best of your feminine power energy and the best of your masculine power and energy, right? So, what are some healthy feminine power traits that people need in leadership today? I asked a group such as you, and then they came up with these set of words. There are many more, but this group gave me these words. Okay, and remember, it's a spectrum. Some of you may put it here, some of you may put it there. Don't get into that nitty gritty. This is for the purpose of making the point, okay, between the polarities. So, can someone read this out for me, please?
Empathy, gentleness, inclusion, nurturing, openness, creativity, variety, flavor, trust, vulnerability, and harmony.
Right? These are these wonderful feminine qualities that are not measured and not rewarded. They're not in your KPIs when you go to the workplace, and no one promotes you for them. But they are critical to keeping a system healthy, happy, nurtured, and growing. And this is called emotional labor that women tend to do a lot of and don't get paid for. Okay? But men are capable of doing this too. This is not about gender, it's about energy that all of us have, regardless of gender. So, when you think of a word like vulnerability, right? Have you heard of Brené Brown? You look her up. Her TED Talk has been seen by millions upon millions of people. She's made millions of dollars with her research on vulnerability. So look it up. That vulnerability is not a liability, it's actually now an ability needed in leadership. Because as a leader, when you can show an open heart and be willing to reveal and receive your deeper emotions, it's considered a necessary skill and strength in leadership, right? Which is a very feminine capacity. Now, while everyone's talking about, yes, women are great and the feminine is wonderful, let's bring it more out of the feminine, that's because we're looking at a hyper masculine world today, which is showing up in a very unhealthy way, right? So, can someone else read these out for me? Go ahead. Yeah. So it's a class such as yours that gave me these words saying, what do you consider hyper masculine behavior? What do you consider unhealthy masculine behavior? This is what they gave me. Then I said to them, what about the feminine? Is it always perfect and beautiful? So this is thing called the line, right? And in today's psychology, they say it's all about learning to live above the line and catching yourself from falling below the line. Okay. So, what happens when you fall below the line in your feminine behavior? You have forgotten your healthy masculine and you're only about the feminine, and then you become hyper feminine. And it can look like this. Can someone else read this out? Go ahead.
Very sentimental, needy, dependent, unfocused, motivational, being.
Nice deep breath, everybody. And I start seeing some giggles in the room and so on, because many women tend to fall into this box, right? Especially older women, mothers. No, we can be smothering. We can be out there helicopter momming our children, hovering over them, not giving them space, right? We can be sentimental. We can be all unfocused and irrational, right? What about manipulative? Those bitchy games, women against women, right? So we can do a lot of that too. So it's not like the feminine is only positive and perfect. And let's not forget, the masculine is healthy too and is very necessary in the system. So, what are some healthy masculine leadership behaviors? Would you read them out?
Strength and purpose.
Yeah. Nice deep breath, everyone, because this is what we got rewarded for right through school and college, right? Come on, show your clarity, show your assertiveness, get focus, get direction. Let there be order and discipline and structure in what you're doing. Get the job done, convergence, right? All that is good, healthy, masculine. The problem is we tend to do one and neglect the other. Especially in a patriarchal society, we have valued all that and we have denied all this. So people tend to be there and have forgotten to be here. And as a result, they go out of balance. The real sweet spot is when you know how to inhale and exhale, flex between your healthy feminine and your healthy masculine situationally as needed in each moment. Do I need to show up in a more feminine way? Do I need to show up in a more masculine way? And if you do that, you remain above the line and you experience life as a flow. But if you do only one and neglect the other, you're doomed to fall below the line and you will have the worst of both worlds. You will show up in an unhealthy feminine and in an unhealthy masculine way. Okay? So they say once you see a polarity map, you can't unsee it. So really, this can be life-changing. It can be game-changing. It can save your work and your jobs. It can save your relationships, your partnerships, if you learn how to do this right. So how do you work a polarity map? Very simple. Ask yourself, we are all, by the way, we are not all, none of us are so enlightened that we live above the line and the smooth inhale and exhale between healthy feminine and healthy masculine. Only the enlightened masters are there. All of us will tend to fall below the line at some point or the other because we have a preference. Some of us prefer to be feminine, some of us prefer to be masculine, and so we go out of balance. So that's okay. Ask yourself, what is my early warning sign when I'm falling below the line and becoming too feminine? What if I have stayed in this whole loving, caring, sharing energy for so long and I have neglected the whole masculine side of it? What happens to me? What is my typical feminine, unhealthy behavior pattern? Can each of you please identify your early warning sign? So, in my case, my early warning sign is that I start feeling needy. So now I have my antenna up and I'm checking. And when I start feeling a little needy on the inside, it's a sign for me that I've fallen below the line. I'm hyper feminine right now. And what do I have to do? Take an action step that takes me across the board and returns me to healthy masculine. It's literally like hot and cold running water and adjusting it to balance. Okay. So, what is an action step I do when I fall into neediness? Please think of your action step as well. I realize an action step I'm good at is self care. And self care is a very healthy masculine, good selfish quality. Okay. So I do self care. I meet my need myself instead of waiting for someone else, my romantic partner, to come and bail me out and rescue me. Instead of waiting for that to happen, I do the self care and I meet my needs myself. I go get a massage. I go treat myself to a nice pair of shoes, whatever it is I need to do to feel happy and that I'm loving myself. Okay. So take the action step that takes you to healthy masculine. You're above the line. But what if you're only doing the masculine energy, you've forgotten the feminine, before you know it, you'll fall below the line and you'll become toxic masculine. So, what is your early warning when you're becoming too masculine? Please identify that. What is a classic behavior? In my case, my classic early warning masculine behavior is it's not here, it's judgmental. Okay? I start feeling very superior. I start feeling very judgmental of body's weakness. Like a laser, I look into them and I can see everyone's weakness. Okay? And I judge them as being inferior, right? But now I know, Nilima, you're falling into your hyper masculine box. Get out of it now. Take a action step that will return you to healthy feminine. So my healthy feminine action step, which is the best antidote to my judgment, is compassion. It's not here, it's my own word, which I put in. compassion. So it so happens I've spent years doing the Buddhist practice of metta, loving kindness. I know karuna towards someone. And guess what? Compassion is not only healthy feminine, it's the perfect medicine, antidote to my toxic masculine, right? So if I'm judging someone, then instead of judging them, can I feel compassion, which says instead of finding their weakness, can I feel compassion for their vulnerability, for what it is that they're missing in their life? Can I help them in some way, right? So, can you see? I go from neediness to self care, I go from judgment to compassion. And now, my only job is to remain between care of self and compassion for others, care of self and compassion for others. As long as I can move through my day, my week, my month in this state, I stay above the line. Feel life is flowing. And I don't have to go down and feel those icky feelings of neediness, judgment, resentfulness, and so on, right? So please, I invite each one of you to identify your early warning and your action step, because this can take your screen, take a picture of it and do work for yourself. Because once you have done this, you can't pretend you don't know how to break out of your unhealthy behaviors. So where are we going? When to come into our full power, to become a whole person? Have you heard of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist? He says ultimately, when we become individuated, when we become whole persons, sovereign beings, self-directed along with our own agency, we achieve the inner wedding. Okay, what is the inner wedding? The inner wedding is the dance of love and power, which is your heartful man gets married to your mindful woman. These are polarities inside each one of us. Now, if you are masculine oriented, if you identify more as male, then your job is to learn to say yes, open your boundaries up to vulnerability, and find love, because you've been too busy saying no, keeping your boundaries down, and the game of power. If you're a woman, you come at it from the opposite direction. If you identify with more female and feminine qualities, then you have to come to wholeness in the complementary opposite way. You have to learn to say no. You have to create those healthy boundaries to gain security and reclaim your power, which you have otherwise given away by saying yes to everybody else. Okay? And psychological wholeness is ultimately what I call the family, the holy family reunion. Inside each of us, to get individuated, you have to become your own parent and your own child. So Dr. Eric Berne, another famous psychologist, came up with this idea of transaction analysis, that inside us we have three ego states: the parent self, the adult self, and the child self. And that to be truly healthy, we have to operate from aware adult, find our healthy parent when needed, the moral, ethical wisdom that needs to be shown in a moment. Find our healthy child when needed, the curiosity, the sense of wonder, the joy when needed. So from aware adult, tap into parent, tap into child. But this is only one level of psychological wholeness. Carl Jung described the other axis, which is if you are a man, find your anima, your inner woman, those feminine qualities to complete you. If you are a woman, find your inner man, the animus, those healthy masculine qualities to complete you. It's about becoming the wise fool of tough love. So, at the end of the book, Shakti Leadership, the one big statement to remember and take away from that entire body of work that we've been teaching for the last 7 years is become the wise fool of tough love. This is the fourfold self. Okay, inside each of us, we have four core archetypes that can be brought to leadership. Wise is your parent self, fool is your inner child, curious self, tough is your masculine energy, and love is your feminine energy. You need all these four. And if you are stuck in any situation in your life right now, ask yourself, do I need more wise? Do I need more fool? Do I need more tough? Do I need more love? I promise you, you'll find the answer, because there is no fifth needed. according to the fourfold self, as long as we have those four energies, we will return to balance. So where you're stuck in your life is because one of those is out of balance. Yeah, the wise fool of tough love. Now, I'm someone who's a master at wise. I do my tough well. I've worked on love. Fool is the energy that I really need to put my intention into. It is that inner child. It's that ability to be stupid and foolish and make mistakes, the ability to be innocent and, you know, just allow myself to be relaxed and not so, wise all the time, right? And it's a great redeemer. It's a great antidote to all the wisdom I have gathered over the years, to remind myself that I don't know it all. So the journey through the 5 elements of Shakti leadership, this is the model that we teach, that people learn when they get certified. We teach presence, which is the master key from a place of presence, which is what we did in the class in the morning. You come into your true power, your Shakti, and then you develop psychological wholeness. You develop the flexibility to move between the 4 poles of wise, fool, of tough love. And then you find congruence, which is discover your innate nature and then live your life on purpose with that. So congruence is about the leader you are, is the person you are. You find your purpose, you start living your purpose. And then we put the circle around it for the heroic journey that you're going to have to make to come into each of these 5 power bases. It's some sort of a death and resurrection. None of these powers are given to you on a platter. You're going to have to make a heroic journey for it. So in closing, exercise power mindfully. It's about win-win power with, not win-lose power over. It's about masculine and feminine power, not or. It's never or. It's time to restore gender relations because they're in a state of deep disrepair around the world as women are waking up, as patriarchy is ending. There's a big crisis of masculinity. It's really time to restore gender relations, become whole man, whole woman, whole person, whole leader. Our mission is to create 100,000 Shakti stewards by 2030, leaders who will take the program and then collaborate to create peace, prosperity, and beauty through the exchange of multiple forms of capital. We run programs with University of San Diego, with Skolkovo in Moscow. We have online courses, self-study courses. There's a lot of ways in which you can get engaged with Shakti leadership. And you can get certified through Tech Day Monterrey as well. So if you wish to follow this and know more, please write to us. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias, correct? Muchas gracias. Yes,
Okay,
thank
I
you.
know some of you have to go to classes because it's 3 o'clock. But any question? Do you have any question? Any comments? Okay, let me.
Thank you for everything. It was a great conversation, and it's like these sentimental things because we know that as women we are like refused by men, and it's just a long journey to
Yeah.
learn this. And thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. The one thing that like really got to me was I think sometimes, well, at least for me, being a woman, it's like really hard to gather that also like masculine energy because sometimes you feel bad doing it
Yes.
because maybe it feels like abandoning yourself
Yes.
just because the patriarchy has done so much stuff to our head that it's only right if we're just feminine or if we just have this feminine energy. And I feel like it's really important to acknowledge and know that we're not just like this feminine energy that is such a beautiful energy, yeah, but we also have to have this strength inside us
Yes.
to know when to stop and when to, you know, as you said, like go to the other side
Yes.
and reach out for those things that are also good from men. And it's not only bad stuff, it
Yeah.
can also mean like great things.
Absolutely. There's a reason the polarity of masculine, feminine, male, and female exists in nature, right? Both have something to contribute. And today, with gender fluidity, all of us are required to find that balance inside us. Whatever is our preferred dominant leadership style, masculine, feminine, doesn't matter, but we've got to be balanced on the inside, right? Thank you. Did you get the answers? Some of you were looking for learning and answers. All right, okay, you got some? Okay, good. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nilima, for staying today with us in the Campus Estado de Mexico. We are so happy to receive you, and I hope you come back with us in another moment. Nowadays, you have a bunch of students that have been touched by your wisdom, and I think they might become a little bit more curious in order to get more knowledge with you. So we expect to have many more visits from you in this campus and in this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I love it here and happy to come back. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Gracias.